Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. To welcome to everybody wherever you're at and wherever you're not at. Here we are again at another wonderful episode of Life Matters TV, episode number 65. And today we're going to be talking about change, and how we sometimes want change and sometimes how we resist change, how we seek it and we reject it at the same time. And to help me with that today, I've got my good friend, my buddy, my co-host, Tommy Stoffel. Good morning, Tommy, or good afternoon, or wherever you are. Hi.
Hey, David. Hello. Happy Friday. I think it's at least Friday for most people. And yeah, change. You hear the change jingling, right?
Yeah.
I thought of this. I think I maybe wrote it, and I said, sometimes it's like, we go through life and we're asking for things to change all the time. And then yet we resist it when it happens, right? So that's what we're starting to address today. And as I was thinking of that, I was thinking, how crazy can that be, right? We're kind of contradicting ourselves. We're sending ourselves a lot of internal mixed signals. So let's just start with that today and see where it takes us, because change is what? Change is everywhere, and everything is always changing. You've changed since you started listening to this broadcast 30 seconds ago. There's some part of you that's changed, some cell that's died, and some other one that's been born. So change is happening all the time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's a really good point, because I remember. I mean, how many times have I been in relationships, or maybe have you been in relationships where I've heard people say, "I don't want you to change. I want you to stay the same. I want to get back to the way it was. I want to this," and I'm thinking, that's absolutely impossible. It will never, ever, ever be the same again. It's like every time I do a men's group meeting or something, when we're circled up, there could be the same 10 guys that we started this whole thing with, but it's not the same 10 guys. You know what I mean? Each one of us has gone through our life changes. Each one of us has had some new experiences that have happened. So our entire lives are different every single moment. And so the idea of resisting change really just doesn't make any sense at all. And yet, that's what we seem to do. It's like, maybe this is coming back to the ego mind again, the ego mind trying to keep us safe and saying, oh my God, change means danger. Change means things aren't going to be stable anymore. Things are going to be in upheaval. Things are going to be, oh my God, I don't think I can stand it. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Help, Tommy, help.
Right? That's what it does. There is some pattern built into us, some conditioning that happens over the years, over time, in most of all of us, that makes us afraid of change for some reason or another. We have fear of change. And if I think about it a little bit, it's usually because it's an unknown, right? The change that, we're not talking about maybe a change that's happened. Like, it's not like, okay, you got reassigned at work, or there's a new org structure, or something's happened. Okay, then you have to adjust and play with it. But we're talking about this when we think about what our life's going to be like a year from now, or what our business may be like 6 months from now, or what our relationship may be like a week from now. We can get in this analysis paralysis where we're afraid of taking that next step, or taking even the first step. So why is that? Where does that fear, where does that analysis paralysis come from? Well, analysis is part of it. But that's a really important thing to start digging into, David, because that's what we're talking about here, right? Is we know everything's changing around us. It's idiotic to think that everything's going to stop and freeze and always stay the same way it is. So how do we get over that fear, and what is that fear made of?
Yeah. Well, as you were talking, I was thinking about how sometimes if I'm taking a trip in a car, and I get on the wrong street or something like that, I just notice how uncomfortable I feel. It's like, uh-oh, I'm not familiar with this territory. Am I going to get lost? There's all these stupid stories. Of course I'm not going to get lost, because I'm right here. I'm right here right now. Where else could I possibly be? And yet, that's what my mind is doing. It's giving me that old story. It's running me around in circles, and then I'm trying to find a common, what do you call it? Oh, I can't even think of the word. Doesn't matter. I'm trying to find something that reminds me of where I am, and I'm all caught up in this cycle, churning up all these emotions, thinking that in some way I'm going to be in danger, when in fact nothing could be further from the truth. But I think that's what our life is like sometimes. It's like we're going down a new path that's different from other paths that we've been on, and it just doesn't feel comfortable. And so we somehow translate discomfort into danger.
Ah, that's a very, very deep, clear realization, because that feels, that's what happens, right? We talk about this fear of unknown, but what is that really feeling? It's a discomfort. And if we associate discomfort with danger, then that gets down to a core. That's a core thing to really realize and feel. And you said it really brilliantly, is that we're very hardly ever in danger, ever anymore in this world that we live in, not compared to the conditioned, maybe human response, the fight or flight piece that maybe triggers in us. So yeah, there's something really deep and nice to explore there in that feeling that change brings up in us, and how until we overcome it unconsciously, our unconscious mind is going to tend towards being afraid and backing off and not taking that step, and maybe not venturing out, on a car trip without knowing where you're going, because what? It gets scary in a hurry. So fear of the unknown, and that feeling is inside of trepidation, of maybe some sense of danger. And if that's what it is, then yeah, let's dig into it and call it out and bring it up and look at it, because really you've said in the past in a brilliant way, of all the things I've gone through in my life, I've made it this far and to some degree of success. And why do I then get afraid and jittery about what's going to come in the future? Why don't I have some confidence that, look, I've made it this far. I know that the next obstacle that comes up, or the next challenge, or the next unknown, or the next change, I'll get through it. Mm-hmm. I'll get through it. And the more we can get through things with a clearer mind, then the better we'll get through them, because we'll make better decisions when they come, as opposed to being all jumbled up in fear and worry and anxiety and everything.
Yeah, yeah. And so the other side of this coin is, all right, so I think we agree that maybe in general we're afraid of the unknown. And this is probably a common thing for most of us with our ego minds, because our ego minds like to be in control, and we can't be controlled if we don't know all the facts. But then there's the other side of the coin, and that is, here I am today, right now. I have a life with all these certain things, and there's another part of me inside me, that the same voice that says, oh, that's not good enough. We have to do this. We have to improve that. We have to get more money. We have to get more of this. We have to do more of that. Otherwise, we're going to be judged by the rest of the people in the world, and blah, 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 blah. You see, so we're seeking the change while at the same time resisting it. That's mind screwy.
And one of the best metaphors I've ever heard from, let's look at the other side of the coin. Boom, change.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So we are, right, looking at the other side, right? Yeah, we're always asking for change. We wake up in the morning, oh, I can't wait for this to be over. I can't wait for that to change. When only this happens, when only the next opportunity comes, whenever blah, 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 we're always inside. And people need to realize how powerful your asks are. We've talked about the power of intention and the power of law of attraction. And every time we think something with some energy and some power behind it, we kind of start to manifest. It starts to kind of come maybe to us. So if we're waiting, I can't wait till this is done, and then that's going to happen, and then this is going to change, and then that's going to change. And so we're asking for things, and we're setting the universe in motion a lot of times with our thoughts and our beliefs and our asks. And then when things come to us, we're like, no, oh no, change, stop, everything stays the same. So it's,
or worse, we say, this is what I asked for, but then when it arrives, we say, wait a minute, that's not what I asked for. It was supposed to have this little bump on the side. It was supposed to have this smooth edge. Come on, figure it out. When I don't give you all the information you need, figure out what's missing and give me what I really want.
Yeah, which gets back to being careful what you ask for.
Exactly.
And not having a list of all these expectations that, because when you get it, you'll always have missed an expectation or forgotten something. So I tend to ask in very general, open, like, bring me what's good for me, bring me what'll help me in this relationship, bring me what'll help me in my business. Just generally leave it open-ended what's going to be good and helpful for me and everybody that I touch and everything I do. Yeah, I feel the more specific I get about asking for things, the more honked up it gets, because there's too many variables and too many unknowns, and then you do resist it. You're like, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I was looking for.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a good statement. Be careful what you ask for. I mean, we all ask for things that we think we want, or in any given moment, we may have some image of what we think we want. And so we ask for that. And then when it comes, we say, wait a minute, that's not really what I wanted. Well, maybe even though you didn't really want it, maybe you wanted it. And maybe it still serves you, even if it doesn't seem like what you really want now. So whatever shows up, how about just accepting it? How about just embracing it? And wrapping yourself around it and seeing what delicious, wonderful new experience it's got inside it. It might be uncomfortable, but remember, discomfort isn't really danger. It might be, but it isn't usually. But go into the discomfort, find out what that's all about, learn from it. And maybe you'll discover that there's really something within you that is yet to be healed. And that maybe this is another opportunity, as we call it, an AFOG. Another freaking opportunity for growth.
So you had so many great points there. I want to hone in on a couple of them. Yeah, now you got me all going on a fog. When we're asking for change and it's coming to us, how to embrace it. We don't always have to embrace change. Everything that happens in our lives, we don't always have to embrace it, right? But there's one of three things we can do. We can accept it. We can work to change it, like, okay, you know, change whatever's happening, or we can leave it, try to get out of it. So there's this aspect of it, but by far and most the easiest thing to do, if it's not a big deal, if somebody wants to do something a different way, if they want to, I don't know, organize the kitchen differently, or the roads, are, you know, they're going to change the traffic pattern on the highway, things you can't control, and you just accept it and go with it. I know people who just fight with stuff all the time in their minds, things that are changing. They're in a constant battle, like, oh, I can't believe they did that. Oh, those idiots, if they just would not do that again. And you can hear the nasty chatter in your own mind resisting things that are changing around you all the time. So as David said, you know, an easy way is just to, you know, put the control test to it. Can I control this situation? No. Can I influence it? Maybe. Do I want to? Is it worth it? Nah. Accept it. And stop fighting with what's going on in the world. And bit by bit, the world will get easier, and it'll seem less of a scary place. And that's, you know, changes that are happening to us. So that's one thing about embracing change that you brought up that I felt was good to go into.
Yeah, well, I agree with you that when I talk about accepting or embracing, it doesn't mean I condone it. It doesn't mean I want it to continue. It means only that I accept what is. That's all. And I accept it from a place, hopefully, of unconditional love, because unconditional love is what heals. If I resist something and I resist it with anger and hatred and fear, I'm just simply feeding the negative energy. And so that doesn't serve me, and I don't think it serves the world. So if I can come to a place of unconditional love and say, okay, here's what's now showing up, I can just unconditionally love it, and then I can release it. But until I have accepted it and understood what it is and checked in with myself and felt into my truth about it, then it's very, very difficult for me to decide if this is something I really want, or if it's something I want to shift, if it's something I want to allow to pass through my life. Until I've done the accepting part, that is really difficult. So that's what I mean by embrace. And I use the word embrace deliberately because it implies an unconditional loving approach. So that's kind of what I meant by that.
It does, and what you just said made a nice distinction between accepting and agreeing.
Yeah.
Accepting doesn't mean you agree with it, right? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, yeah.
You don't always have to agree with everything, but at least, and maybe acceptance is a better word for that too, but sometimes I use that screen door analogy, you know, of something's happening, and if I resist it, if I fight it, then look at my face, look at my body, you can feel the tension, right? You can see the red glow start to come around, and I'm taking in some frustration, some anxiety, some things that'll later lead to, you know, negative harm to myself, tension and stress and everything. Whereas if the accepting part, again, doesn't mean I agree with it, right? That's what you were saying. I don't have to agree with everything that's going on, all the change that's happening, but I don't have to take it personally. I don't have to take it on. I don't have to make it part of my sack of rocks, and I can almost just let it go through me. That's almost the acceptance too. It's not like I'm accepting it and loving it and everything's great. It's like, okay, just bring it in and let it go by. You know, martial arts, let it flow by. Don't take it in, don't take it on. So there's a lot of that in change, because change, like I said, it's always happening. Now it's how you deal with it and how you see it to make it a little easier and to be able to embrace it, like you said. And embracing is sometimes accepting, sometimes agreeing, sometimes disagreeing, but not letting it bother you or eat you up.
Right, right. Yeah, I think, well, Jesus was the one who taught us to love our enemies, right? And I mean, what are our enemies but those things that trigger us and get us upset? And I mean, they don't even have to be people, you know. It could be just behaviors, it could be actions, it could be things that happen out there that trigger thoughts in our minds. We could think of those as enemies. Well, if I sit there and fight them and create, you know, come up with the hatred kind of energy that tries to push them away, all I'm doing is feeding them more energy and allowing them to get even stronger in my life. On the other hand, if I simply acknowledge them and do my best to love them unconditionally, even though I don't necessarily agree with anything they're saying, doing, thinking, or believing, that's really what I think Jesus was talking about. Because when I love my enemies in that way, I release myself from the stress and the pain and the discomfort and all the rest that comes with it, and I can just be. And that's really what we talk about here, Tommy, is just being.
Yeah, just being accepting, being loving. You know, the unconditional love you keep saying is just being. This is all relationship related. You know, it's not being with a tree necessarily, but it's being with another person or groups of people or concepts of groups of people. You know, we have, you know, this group of politicians. Oh my God, I hate what they're doing, and they're changing, and they're doing this, and they're, you know, and you can get all worked up inside. But just kind of being aware and being present, and doing your best not to judge. Right? It gets back to I believe everyone wakes up in the morning. Most everyone wakes up in the morning. I think now I saw a statistic yesterday that 97% of us wake up in the morning not intentionally meaning to be psychopathic and doing harm. Most of us wake up trying to live a good day and be good people, and so have that presence and awareness in everybody you deal with, that we're all here, and that's how I get this unconditional like appreciation for everyone, and understanding that we're all in this together. You know, going back to what we talked about last week, kind of being on an equal footing with everybody, not better than, not worse than. And it just makes this world of change that's always going on around us so much easier and so much more fun and so much more free to live in.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we said at the beginning, change is going to happen. Change happens every single instant, and it's inevitable. It cannot stop happening. If it did, I can imagine that this would be a pretty dull place. If change ever stopped, I mean, that would imply that all movement ceases throughout the universe. And I just can't imagine that happening. I don't know what that would mean. We wouldn't be here. You know, there would be no consciousness. There would be nothing. So we owe it to ourselves to recognize that change is just a fact of life. Change is just another word for consciousness. It's another word for process. It's another word for life. It's another word for love. It's another word for, you think of it, man, that's what change is. So let's live with it. Let's love it. And let's invite in the kind of change that serves ourselves and serves the greater good and serves the benefit of mankind. That's what I think we should together as a group try and do.
You know, as you said that changes everything, it just brings it right down to changes this moment. I mean, this moment, this moment, this moment, because every moment's different. So change is also presence. It's also the present moment. It's also right now.
Yeah.
The now is change. And so to resist it is ridiculous. Resistance is futile. and maybe instead of kind of displacing or replacing that fear of the discomfort that sometimes fear brings or change brings about, maybe twist that into a sense of adventure.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know as a kid, and I do this now in my life too, things that used to scare me, I now look at it as an adventure. Like I'm going to the airport. When I get there on time, you know, is the flight going to be on time? Is it going to go okay? And you know, that could bring up a lot of tension in people. Flying is a you know, future activity that some people can get all worked up about. And you're changing your location. You're going to some different time zone. You know, all this stuff changes going on. And if you can look at it with an eye of adventure, like wow, this is let's see what happens today. Maybe it won't go well. Maybe it'll, you know, it's going to be an adventure. It's going to be, and go with that exploration and openness and just freeness and kind of fun and be a little bit of a kid about exploring things you don't know and something new and some adventure, and maybe start to look at change that way. That it's an opportunity for adventure.
Now I love that idea of adventure. You know, I know that for myself, I think I've shared this before, that some of the personal growth work I've done in the past has led me to look at some of the darker aspects of myself, some of my shadows. And I remember the very first time I did that, I was terrified. I thought, oh my God, what's going to show up? Some dark part of me, and everybody's going to hate me, and nobody will want to be around me, and they're going to see what kind of a jerk I am or whatever. Or what, you know, I had all these stories that were going on in my head. And yet, when I allowed myself to go there in the presence of other witnesses who watched me, they didn't run away. They didn't avoid me. They didn't start to hate me. In fact, the exact opposite happened. Because of the fact that I was willing to open myself up like that and be vulnerable, people were actually drawn to me. And because of that, just having had enough courage to try it once, it allowed me to try it again a second time and a third time, to the point where I reached that state that you're talking about of, oh, guess what? I get to go do some shadow work today. I wonder what I'm going to find out about myself now. And more and more and more that I find out, the more interesting I become. Well, maybe not to the other people around me. They already know me, but more interesting I become to me, because I get to see those parts of myself that I have hidden, that I have repressed, that I've denied, that I have pretended didn't exist for so long because I didn't like the judgments that I thought other people had about it. So adventure, wonder, it's great to find out new stuff, man. Check it out.
It is exploring, and now, you know, turn that exploration of out to exploring within is what you're talking about. And you're absolutely right, David. Once you get a little taste of it, and once you have somebody teach you some particular techniques on how to investigate yourself, which we do every episode here, it almost becomes a game. It's like somebody says something and I feel this discomfort, and I'm like, oh, well, it's another opportunity. Cool, let's go see what that one's about.
Yeah.
Let's go find out where that one came from. And then you do, and you find out, oh, that's all? Oh, gone. And that's another, and then you're like a little bit lighter. Yep. And that's how it works for me, and I see it work for other people. And doing this exploration and a sense of adventure on changing yourself, you know, the changes we go through internally is, boy, if you can play it like a game and have fun with it and not, you know, don't beat yourself up, but just the unconditional love for yourself that, look what I'm going through. Man, that takes courage, that takes bravery to be an explorer and an adventurer, an inner explorer, an inner adventurer, a lot of inner bravery, a lot of inner courage, and a lot of inner freedom and lightness and fun comes out of it.
Yeah.
if you're doing it and you recognize it, keep doing it. If it's something new to you, a new concept, get beyond that initial discomfort and fear and just try it. Take a step and try it. And as they say in the commercial, Mikey likes it. So.
Well, there's another word that I want to bring to people's awareness, and I'm sure they've heard this word before, and I'm sure you've heard it before, and that's curiosity.
Yeah.
You know, I think adventure has a kind of a little bit of a feel of curiosity in it, but the curiosity is a natural aspect of childhood. And when I'm curious, I'm not going with a sense of judgment. I'm going with a sense of, I wonder what I'm going to find out if I try this. and the same thing happens, you know, the idea of adventure. I wonder what I'm going to learn if I go here. You know, it's really the same thing. It's the same energy. And if I come from a place of authentic curiosity, that is, I'm just curious for the sake of understanding and knowing and deepening my awareness of life and everything else, that is of benefit to me. And it might be of big benefit to other people too. So let's all be curious. Let's all just go and find out what's really inside here, inside this amazing being that's right here, right now.
Yeah, again, with that attitude, that shift in attitude of looking for what am I going to find, and don't get upset when you find bad behaviors. Don't get upset when you find habits that, you know, oh crap, I did it again. Okay, well that's kind of fun too. Okay, now I found it. Now go explore and figure out where it comes from, and see if you can find the root of it, and see if you want to dig up that root and pull that weed out or not. But yeah, whatever sense of adventure and curiosity, I love it. I love the energy of this view of seeking to know thyself, because that's what this is all about too, is knowing yourself. And you know what, David, you said it, that at first there's fear of other people judging you. Oh, what if I say something, or they see some of the darkness in me, or they see some of the mistakes I've made, or they see some of the things I've done. You know what? I've never met anybody in these types of situations, whether it's group or one-on-one, that if anybody's ever shared that information with me, I first feel like honored. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're opening yourself to me, and I just feel totally honored, and I just reply and respond with just love and compassion and caring and understanding. Hell, I've been there. Oh, I've been there too. Oh, I've done that too. Oh yeah, well let me tell you about mine. And so it's we have this fear of exposing our inner selves, and when you do with other people who are doing this work and on the path, you find friends, you find companionship, you find cooperation, you find connection, you find us who are here to help each other. Mm-hmm. And David, you and I, you know, met each other, and here we are 3 years later almost, doing this, just opening up and sharing with each other and whoever else wants to listen. It's a magical gift, and that's all through curiosity, exploration, a sense of adventure, and not being afraid to know yourself and go inside, right?
Right. Yeah, and the whole idea of judgment, we've talked about this before anyway, and several of our shows. In fact, maybe we bring it up every time we do a show. But in reality, here, what I believe to be true is that most people are not sitting there looking for all the things wrong with me. You know, in fact, most people have pretty positive things to say about me, for the most part. Yeah, sometimes they'll have a negative judgment. The same is true about you. You know, most people have positive judgments. And I'm saying this for the benefit of our viewers as well. If you think about it for a moment, most people have good things to say about you. You know, there might be one or two not so good things, but so what? In the context of who you really are, those are pretty small. And so enjoy the fact that you have a varied personality and a varied way of showing up, and they're all beautiful, even if I don't like them. It doesn't matter whether I like them or not. It's all about you being a unique and powerful and fully present individual, and not trying to change everything about yourself just because you imagine that I or somebody else might have a judgment about it.
Yeah, and I think that in our exploration, those truths become evident because you'll see what other people, you'll start by uncovering some layers of what you think other people think of you, and then pretty soon you're like, I don't care so much what other people think of me. You get to that place, and then you kind of work on yourself of what you want to improve on and better yourself, but don't get caught up in the judgment, right? And don't get caught up in the opinions of others so much, because we're all going through this too. And sometimes I have to do this for myself, as if I'm changing something about myself because somebody else said something, I'd say thank you very much. Now I need to own that. I'll take it in and I'll see, okay, is there truth in there for me? Did it feel discomfortable? Did it hurt? Did it push a button? If it did, then there's some work I need to do, that I want to do for myself to clean it up. But if there's nothing I find, that other person said something that was like really silly or nasty or in their mind true, then I turn to that person with lots of love and compassion, because I know, and I've been there, of how messed up we can be in our minds and our hearts in certain times of our life. And there's lots of people who are struggling and suffering. So I say, okay, I check myself. I'm clear on that one. It's not about me in this case. It's something that's going on in that person that I maybe triggered or pushed a button on or caused or brought up in something I said or did. But there's an element of that too, right? So change what you can, accept what you can't, and understand that not all of it's about you.
Yeah, right. So folks, change. Invite what you want into your life, and then when it shows up, accept it. When you've accepted it, then you can decide what to do with it. You may want to let it just pass through. You may want to keep working on that change. You may decide that this is something you really love. But whatever you do, don't just resist blindly whenever change comes. Just notice. Notice. And then ask yourself, so what am I really trying to tell myself at this point?
All right, David, thanks for that wrap up. Next week, let's go to, we're having a special guest with us next week, Josette Privot, a good friend of ours, has been on the show before. She's a quantum healing practitioner, which is an amazing past life regression technique that she does. And next week, we're going to talk about my divine contract. So join us next week for that interesting topic. I'm sure there'll be some fun things uncovered there.
All right, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, all.